Starting with this full drawing, this was my first time really leaning into saturated colours so heavily. Despite this, I really love this drawing and it's easily the best thing I've ever drawn. I love the use of saturated colours in this piece. I exclusively use saturated colours for the magic spell thing and the ball in her staff, yet they definitely take precedent in this drawing. I also experimented with screen tones in this piece. Using screen tones in Ibis Paint X is a bit fiddly, specifically changing the colour of the screen tones. However, the addition definitely benefited this piece. I used them only on the magic bits of the drawing again, which worked well to differentiate the magic and the non-magic parts of the scene. I really like the shading in this drawing, especially the jacket. It accentuates the folds well, which I appreciate. My folds still aren't perfect, but I think that they look good in this piece. For once, I actually really like the hands in this drawing. I drew lots of hands while making this piece as her pose changed, but I do think that the hands I ended up with look pretty decent. The fingers of this hand do look a bit short, but it isn't very obvious unless you're looking directly at them. I also really like the character's hair in this piece. I'm trying to figure out how to make the hair more defined using shading, since I previously always used a line art for this. I think that I did this pretty convincingly. I really like art styles that utilize texture by adding a layer of it on top of their drawing. Because of this, I tried to do this on my own drawing. However, the way that I did it does mean that the entire drawing has a pink hue, but I think this is fine and actually adds to the drawing, making the colours look more harmonious. Overall, I really like this effect on the drawing, though I do feel that it made the details less visible, which is a problem. However, there are a few things that I don't like about this drawing, specifically the anatomy. I haven't studied feet at all yet, hence why they look very questionable. I also had issues with the legs, specifically this one. I'm still not confident drawing poses despite drawing 100 of them. There's a dedicated video on that on my channel. Because of this, the leg doesn't look quite right. Fortunately, the saturated colours draw your eyes to the top of the drawing, making my poor anatomy less obvious. However, it's still something I need to work on. Her expression is also quite good, though I feel that it isn't very clear with all of the texture combined with my subtle shading. Overall, I love this drawing. I love the saturated colours, I love the use of screen tones, and I love the character's hair. Despite the short list of issues, this is easily my favourite drawing that I've ever made. Moving on to this full drawing, I really like the composition and I especially like the hair. I tried to use the tree, ground and bush to direct the eye to the character. I also used colour to achieve this with her fringe and dress being more saturated. I do think that I should have put the butterfly further away from the tree, but otherwise I think this composition worked. One thing I like the most in this drawing is the hair. The shading, especially on the fringe, is quite good and defines the hair well despite the lack of line art. To achieve this, I started with line art and then shaded the hair. After merging the line art and base colour layer, I shaded over where the line art used to be, making the hair look like this. Another thing I really like but think could be improved upon is the dress. Again, I usually use line art when drawing, so this was a bit more challenging. I really like the shading, though I think that it should have continued to the side of the dress rather than stopping randomly. The general shape of the dress also doesn't feel right, though I can't pinpoint what's wrong with it. It's a pretty simple shape, but I feel that it's well executed enough. However, that's about it when it comes to things that I like. Looking at her hands, it's okay until you see the wrist. The arm has really weird looking wrists, and this arm doesn't have them at all. Though the hand shape itself does look pretty decent all things considered. It's just the wrists that look weird. While the tree looks decent, the ground certainly does not. I still can't draw grass, leaving me with these awkward green lines that don't suit the art style of the rest of the scene. I don't hate the bushes in the background so much though. I do think they could be improved by using a leaf brush around the edges. You can see I did this for the foreground bushes, so I don't know why I didn't do this for the background ones. The butterfly looks tolerable, though I think that I could have been more creative with the pattern. It also looks like a 5-year-old made it, especially considering the wings aren't the same size and the pattern doesn't match up. This does make sense since I haven't seriously tried to draw a butterfly since I was younger, though it is quite jarring going from a basic butterfly to detailed hair. Now, moving on to the legs, because what is that? They look like blocks of pink more than they do legs, which is obviously a problem. As said earlier, I'm still not fully confident with drawing poses. As a part of this, I still can't draw legs at a side profile very well, especially without line art. I tried to show you how the leg gets thicker as the lower leg starts, but I feel that this just made it look even more blocky. I think using a line art may have helped with this, however, as the rest of the piece doesn't have line art, it would have been quite distracting and likely taken away attention from the rest of the drawing. The box she's leaning on does look decent when you're not directly looking at it, however, it's very undefined and would have benefited from line art massively. The clouds also look odd, though I'm again unsure of how to fix that. I've always struggled with clouds and need to study them further to prevent these issues. Overall, this drawing has a lot of problems, but it is an okay drawing, especially the top path. I much prefer this drawing. I use the same techniques in this drawing as I used in the first drawing of the month. I really like the composition of this drawing. I used lines on the floor to direct the eyes to the character and the massive ball in the sky. I also really like the archways. The lines at the top help to guide the eyes again, while the archways themselves help to break up the scene. However, I do think that the archways make the character look very small compared to them, which wasn't my intention. They also cover up the orange ball, which takes away from the drama of the scene in my opinion. Moving on to the character, though she looks a lot smaller than I anticipated, I do love how she turned out. The shading on the dress looks good, in part to the inclusion of bounce lighting, and I love the hair. Despite the lack of line art, the shapes are clear through the shading. However, I do think that the bottom of the hair may have benefited from bounce lighting considering the shapes there aren't as clear as they are in other parts of the hair. The character originally had line art, though I removed it, which was definitely a good idea. I'm trying to move away from line art as I feel that it makes my drawings feel more like a complete beginner drew them compared to my no line art drawings, though I'm not entirely sure why that is. As mentioned previously, I experimented with screen tones and saturated colours in this drawing. I found that I love using dramatic saturated lighting in my drawings, which this piece very obviously has. I used a mostly analogous colour scheme for this piece, which worked really well. I also really like the screen tones. I layered a more dense and less dense screen tone on top of each other, but I'm not sure if this is benefiting the drawing or not. There aren't really any standalone parts of the drawing that I dislike, which is good. Overall, I really like this drawing. My use of saturated colours is good, and I really like the character even though she is a bit small. Finally, I also made these two heads. I really like this head, specifically the hair and the complementary colours. Her face is also appealing, though I obviously struggle with the nose like usual. This other head is still good. I like the shading of the head, however her hair just looks awful. I think that I should have cut into the hair strips instead of making them one long tube. I also really struggle with picking a colour for the inside of her mouth. A lot of the colours I tried were quite distracting and took away from the full drawing. I ended up using the salmon colour, which still has these issues but to a lesser extent. Overall, I quite like these drawings despite their issues. Okay, so that was everything I drew this month. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe to see more monthly evaluations. I have a full playlist of these for you to binge. Thank you for watching until the end. Bye bye!